Hello, this is War on Maps. I am Arez. This is our special guest. I'm here. And this video will be about what if the top 10 most powerful countries went to war with the rest of them. And yeah, so if you want to see my source, then the source is globalfirepower.com 2023. So yeah, and there's going to be one country in the world that will be neutral. And of course, it has to be Switzerland. So yeah, Switzerland's not going to be invaded by anybody. So yeah, let's get this thing started. So I have a question. What's this little dude there? What's that little dude there? This is French Guiana, part of France, and this is Puerto Rico, part of the U.S., and the U.S. is going to have a bit of trouble taking over all the Americas. Yeah, you can see that. But Asia's going to be slapped. But yeah, all these things are going to happen at the same time because I can't literally jump from like, oh, look, Russia's invading Ukraine and then jump right to North Korea and invading South Korea. But North Korea probably won't be invading South Korea though. So yeah, we're going to start off in Asia. And specifically in North Korea, which is not going to have some fun time because they get backstabbed by their only friend and take a hit from the worst enemy in the south. And eventually they surrender. And I don't need to cover that up. Oh, wait, maybe I need to cover something up. I won't say what that is. I think you guys can figure that out. So yeah, next, Mongolia just surrenders. It's better for their people. What do you need to cover up? I will not be saying anything about this little doll right here. It's totally not a nuclear weapon. JK. That doesn't happen, and Mongolia surrenders. Yes, Mongolia does surrender, North Korea does surrender. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, there's still a long way. There's still a lot more, but Central Asia is pretty weak, and they surrender to Russia because they're pretty good friends with Russia. And then, it's like the Soviet Union again, but a bit smaller. Yeah, there's only these European guys, plus this guy. And we're just like the Soviet Union again. I don't think you should say that in a video. Oh, why? Not the best thing to say. But Russia begins its invasion of Ukraine, and that takes Crimea. But Ukraine, along with many European soldiers, are gonna start slapping into Russia. Oh my, that is a slap. They're slapping into Russia, taking Moscow, taking all of Russia. Just kidding. That doesn't happen. Neither does that slap, because Europe is pretty weak now because these guys are against them, and these are literally the two most powerful countries in Europe. And this is probably how it looks. There's probably Belgium and the Netherlands under mostly French control, and also a portion of Spain with also France. Then there's also probably some German forces here. And this is probably how the front line looks on France. And Italy's gonna probably just focus on defense here because they're gonna try to take out Africa. So they begin by landing in Tunisia, pretty weak country, and then pushing down, which they are succeeding. And they're gonna just simply try to take all the Mediterranean coast of these countries, which is what they succeeded in doing, and managed to take pretty much most of their population. But they weren't able to push into Egypt, as Egypt is a pretty powerful country. But now Italy is just going to hold that very long front line there and start taking out Spain and Portugal because it's going to be good for France. So eventually they manage to encircle these troops, but those troops are going to be able to hold on for a tiny bit. But eventually Italy and France take out Madrid, and Spain surrenders along with Portugal. Then these troops here are gone, and And now it's easier to supply all this thing, but now they have to take out a little bit of the Balkans to be able to more easily supply, and Italy is the 10th most powerful country, so they are going to be able to take out these countries pretty easily. But they are the weakest, so it's not going to be the easiest thing. They are stopped at this line in Greece and eventually slightly pushed back. Oh yeah, and if you're wondering, we're gonna put the order of the countries in the description, like the strongest to the weakest. Yes, that is something that. So it will show the top 196. No, it will show the top 10 most powerful countries, not the entire thing. We'll, if you want that, we'll link it in the video on Google Firepower. But yeah, this is how it looks right now. The Italians have managed to make a small invasion into Turkey, but they are stopped at Istanbul. And Greece managed to push them back, but then the Italians pushed them back again. And this is around how the front line looks in Europe and Africa for the moment. But now the British are showing up in big numbers and taking out and beginning to take out Germany. So Germany calls a withdrawal of these troops to try to hold the line, but that was a mistake because now the French are able to push into Germany as well. And Germany has to surrender. And I'm sorry about the background noise. Amir, can you please close the door? That is my little baby brother. So yeah, he is pretty loud. But yeah, this little boy over here is going to be a safe haven for the war. And Ireland up here. I forgot to cover that. Sorry. And then Austria, Czechia, and Slovenia all surrender because they know that's their chance. And those fast because there are like a lot of countries. Yeah, this is how far the Europeans are gonna go because Russia is also gonna be focusing south here to try to distract Turkey to be able to capture Istanbul. So they begin invading to the Caucasus and eventually a bit of Iran. And then this. And this is the front line. And now Turkey is forced to send some of its troops over to defend against the Russian advance, allowing for Italy to be able to capture Istanbul and the Bosphorus Strait and I forgot the name of those straits down there. Sorry about that. But yeah, in naval superiority, this area is blue. This area is definitely blue team superior. But now Russia is going to continue its invasion of Ukraine through the south and eventually start invading Belarus. And Belarus is kind of like, what the heck? Please get off my chair. And so Belarus just surrenders and allows troops to cross in. And eventually the troops go down through to northern Ukraine and march extremely fast from Kaliningrad over to Belarus to cut off the Baltics, even though they are basically cut off. Russia tries an offensive into Finland, but it fails, and Finland makes an offensive into Russia and eventually manages to completely cut off the Kola Peninsula, which is forced to capitulate. And eventually, Finland continues to push south from the Kola Peninsula and meets up with its other offensive. And then the remaining Baltic states send all their troops and people to try and attack St. Petersburg, and they manage to siege it. And this is going to be the first main battle. So the Finns are coming from the north, but the Baltic states are not able to hold the line, and they're managed to be pushed back, and the Finns do get pushed back a tiny bit. You're highlighting the ocean. Yes, sorry about that. Just this is basically the same color as the ocean, so I highlight it. And please don't mind that. So this is basically how the front line in St. Petersburg looks like. And it will stay like that until the Russians get some help from, well, their other allies. It's even Ireland. Let's see how much progress there. Still a lot to go. And now we're gonna head over to North America a tiny bit. And here, Canada surrenders. I don't need to cover that. Oh yeah, that's the same color I need. A different color. Just a second. So Canada surrenders. And the US just islands hops these countries. And then over here in Mexico, it is gonna be pretty slow, but the US manages to make a landing in Mexico's populated areas. And along on the other side, eventually splitting Mexico into two. The northern part is pretty weak and surrenders, and so does the southern. And yes, this is just to save you some time. Mexico will not fall that quick. Well, unless the US uses some of its end weapons. Nuclear. And then the US just breezes through these Central American countries. Sorry if you live there, but your country probably doesn't stand a chance against the US. And yeah, eventually they make it into Panama and get a bit stopped in this gap here because there's no roads. No roads somewhere in the world. Impressive. But instead of just marching through that extremely fortified area, which is probably fortified right now, they make a many landings along South American coast, but French Guiana does fall because France is basically in Europe, focusing, and then eventually makes a landing to surround the gap. It surrounds the gap, and then eventually the gap falls. The gap? Say its real name. Darien Gap. And eventually the US is going to try to push in, but it's pretty stopped, but it does manage to connect its front. But now all of the South American troops are all placed on this front, so the US is going to be kind of stuck there, except in Ecuador. But then it did something unbelievable. It bribed Brazil enough to make Brazil join it on its side, even though it's probably not allowed to in this video, but I feel like letting it be, and that means South America is completely gone. But now, to make it feel more like in the actual video, Brazil is going to be in that color. So yeah, now the US is just going to take over Greenland and Iceland. Greenland. And basically, instead of focusing in on Europe, which is probably okay, it's going to focus in on Africa. It makes landing on the southern coast, because that's the less desert area, and eventually pushes up South Africa. And the Africans were not ready for this, as they were focusing on the Italian front up there. So now they had to send some troops down to try to hold on against this big old offensive. And it's not like South Africa was basically doing anything. So next, they made a landing in Madagascar, which immediately surrendered. That was weird. Which Madagascar immediately surrendered. Then they made a landing in Angola, I think, and then another one in Namibia. And then eventually those countries surrendered with the rest of South Africa and that country, which I think that's Botswana. And yeah, but now the US and Brazil are gonna have a bit of a hard time pushing in, because now there are more African troops. And though the US and Brazil armies are much more capable, there's just way too many of them. The African militaries are basically not capable, but they do have a lot of them. Like, imagine you have a super powerful gun, with super good armor, and then you're fighting on your own against like 50 other people. Who do you think would win? That's why this entire thing is going too slowly, but eventually they capture Kinkasha and boost Rosenville, and fast forwarding the DRC, these guys all are forced to surrender, but eventually the front is held, and Africa is pretty evenly split. But now let's head back over to Asia. And when I say Asia, I mean Southeastern Asia. So Vietnam will not be damaged because those farmers are really good at guerrilla warfare, but Thailand does fall. You're blocking me. And Myanmar, Bangladesh both fall. India snatches Sri Lanka. And then there's a push up into Malaysia, and I will not be waiting for you. And then they make a landing in the other part of Malaysia, in Borneo, take over Brunei, and eventually push into the Indonesian thirds of the island. Pretty easily succeeding. They're only taking over this island to be able to take out Java. But yeah, now they're going to continue to push in. But now Australia has begun sending their troops here, and the front line is held on Borneo. So they notice they need to open a new front. And when I say one, I mean 2 or 3 on the same island, and eventually split it into 2 and take out Sumatra. I think this is what the island is. So they take out Sumatra and eventually push down. And now there's just Java in this part of Borneo. Indonesia is supposed to withdraw its troops from Borneo to protect Java. And then there's a landing on Sulawesi, the island that looks like a star. And then there's a final very important battle, which I will be covering, on the landing in Java. And just so you know, this island has more population than Russia. So how much population? I think like 138 or something. But yeah, 138 people. So yeah, now there's landing on less than 138 million. So yeah, this island is pretty populated, but there is a slow advance through it, as Australia is now sending all its troops over to protect Java. Oh, what a straight line. Yes, I made that on purpose. And now there's a pretty slow advance until eventually they decide to consolidate all their troops into Java, which is around that area. So that's actually no, that's right. So eventually they get pushed back all the way to Java, and eventually it's just literally Java and its satellite cities. So this is a very important battle. So we're gonna begin like this. Oh no. It's gonna be a pretty slow battle because it's an important one. This is capturing like the world's 5th most populated city. And so there's a slow advance of division of Indian and Chinese divisions pushing in, probably also Japanese ones. They're pushing in slowly, but then there are some airborne land. There's some Indonesian and Australian airborne landings that form a perfect square, probably not, and eventually continue to push until they reach the coast to be able to be supplied. And then eventually begin pushing. So the Chinese, Japanese, and Indians call up some some flanking divisions, which split everything.
Oh my god, you're doing that on purpose.
And then eventually they take out the airborne landings. And airborne landings. And eventually the rest of Java's coast, Jakarta's coast is captured. And now there's basically just Jakarta. So with just Jakarta left, Indonesia is basically collapsed, and eventually the rest of Java is taken out. Now Indonesia is forced to surrender, which means this. And then East Timor surrenders, Papua New Guinea, and don't land in Australia. But the Chinese don't know what I was talking about, and make a ginormous airborne landing in the center of Australia and die. Because it's a desert. Then they notice their mistake and land in the northern part, push down, and then make a landing in Perth, and make a landing in Melbourne, and also make a landing in Sydney. And eventually, with all its population literally captured, Australia surrenders, and New Zealand did not even want to be in this war, so they also surrendered. And with that, there's literally very little countries left in Asia. Vietnam eventually surrenders. Taiwan, same goes for Taiwan. And eventually everything surrenders except, and eventually Iran is pushed back by Russia, and Iraq, and there's, stop. I know, because it's literally mountains. And eventually Iran is forced to surrender. There's a little landing in the UAE and Oman. Then it advances to Qatar, captures Saudi Arabia's oil, and Saudi Arabia is forced to surrender. With that, Oman, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and Israel, and Lebanon, and Turkey, and Greece, even Greece, yeah, all surrender. And for the first time in history, Afghanistan is taken. The first time in history, except for one little Afghanistan stronghold, which was able to do little something called liberate the world.
Let's see how much it liberated.
Holy! So yeah, this little part of Afghanistan is able to liberate the world, even Europe and Mongolia somehow, Southeast Asia, and all the Middle East, some Africa, some Europe.
Don't lie.
And no, that was a lie. It was not able to liberate anything, but it was able to hold down till the end of the war. So I'm gonna leave that there. But eventually it doesn't survive, and because it needs resources, so it needed to surrender. But then there's some Greek rebels that come in Greece and manage to advance into the rest of Greece, make some attacks in Turkey, and eventually split Turkey. They gain Istanbul, but eventually they're getting pushed back to where they started, just in Athens. And now the Italians are going to push into the Greek rebels and take them out. Now Bulgaria, Serbia, and Montenegro are taken out. There's an advance into Romania. And they know things won't go this fast, but it's just because I need to save you some time. There's still basically half of Africa and like some pretty powerful European guys. Basically, the only area where the blue team was able to advance was in northern Russia, because there's literally nothing there, and they nearly managed to take St. Petersburg, but they failed. But because I feel bad for them, I let them take St. Petersburg. I mean, like, I have to give them something.
Oh, then you have to give every other country something too.
No, but now Russia is pushing into the Baltic states and Estonia, and eventually this area is completely liberated, with bonus advancing to Finland and finally being able to take out southern Finland. Finland, for once, actually surrendered to the Russians, along with Norway and Sweden. So now the rest of Europe knows they don't stand a chance and they're just going to save their citizens by surrendering. Slovakia and Poland fight to the death and die.
A duel.
Yeah, this little Iranian stronghold dies. Then it's just Africa and Nepal and Bhutan. So yeah, Africa knows it doesn't stand a chance. So it knows it just has to surrender. More than that. Yeah, that seems good enough.
Bro.
There we go.
What
Now
about
Africa
Nepal?
surrenders. And now Nepal and Bhutan, the ultimate superpowers, they were holding back. Now they're able to take out the entire world.
That's a lie.
Correct.
That's all it did.
All right, so and that was a sad dream though.
That was
And they were the ones to be annihilated by this 950 pixel size circle. And Antarctica also gets annihilated. And this is the entire world. So yeah,
versus
I'm gonna
187.
And now I'm gonna just pause this video and make a peace treaty, because the peace treaty will probably take some time to make, and that will save you time. Hello, we're back, and this is the peace treaty. So first I'm just gonna explain this, and then Amir wants to say something. So we're gonna begin with the British Empire. Yeah, it's an empire again. It takes Ireland, obviously, that I don't need to explain. It wants more oil, so it took Norway. It took Iceland because it wanted to. It also took Portugal because we were good allies. And the British also got a lot of southern Africa, Egypt, and of course they had to get some Middle Eastern colonies, and I forgot the code. Do one last thing, and then I can mark this done. Yeah, it's done actually now. Oh.
It's all right.
Man, I'm just gonna do it really quick.
Okay, there's also here all of those.
Then I'm not gonna do that. So yeah, next I'm just gonna just take out all the European empires and then move on. So then we have the French Empire, it looks more like the Frankish Empire. So yeah, has all. I'm actually gonna call it Napoleonic Empire because it looks like Napoleon's empire, except a lot less in Germany and a lot less over here. And a lot less in Russia.
Napoleon was a good leader, right?
Yeah. So until he invaded Russia. And yeah, so I'm just not gonna explain anything about this. It's just territories they wanted. And now we're moving on to Italy. No. So yeah, they just conquered the Balkans because they wanted to. France also gave them a present of Corsica. And they also took Libya and Tunisia. And then we move on to Russia, which is now looking a lot more like the USSR. And yes, Samir, what do you want to say?
You might be thinking all those light reds are somebody.
And they're not.
They're not. There's no.
They're just guys that were taken over. And I need to fix that little fellow.
What happened there?
So yeah, this Russia is looking a lot more like the USSR, only missing Central Asia and the Caucasus. So yeah, Russia's a lot bigger, it has a lot more population. And now we're moving on to the Chinese Empire. I forgot to do this, and I do not care anymore. So China has Mongolia, obviously. It also has some Vietnam. It also wants to control the Strait of Malacca for its economy, and also has the Indonesian part of Borneo. And I don't need to explain anymore. So, and then India just gets a bunch of stuff over here, but nothing really overseas. Then we go to Korea, which is very well sprinkled, pretty much across the globe, across the old world. It has Cambodia, Malaysia. It also has Somalia. It even has this little part of Brazil up here, which I gave it for some reason because I felt like it. Oh, and France also has the Guianas. So, yeah. And next, we go over to Japan, which has Taiwan, the Philippines, Java even, giving it a whole lot population, and pretty much empty Australia. I just need to do something. And it also has New Zealand and Papua New Guinea. So yeah, this is looking a lot more like Japanese Empire, except less in China, more in Oceania. So, Amir, please close the door.
Oh yeah, who's in Antarctica?
Nobody is in Antarctica. All right. And next we go on to the American Empire, which obviously I do not need to explain all of North America. I just get all of it. Then it has all of these South American guys because they wanted some more Pacific coast. And yeah, so yeah, that's what that happens. And if there's any, are there any more? Oh yeah, Pakistan does get Iran and Oman because it wanted it. And yeah, this is basically the new world.
And if you're wondering what
The entire ratings of all the countries in the world, then I will put a link in the description for Global Firepower.
Oh, yeah,
and if you want to check my source, then it's the same link, but it's for 2023. So don't blame me if you're watching this in 2025 and it says Russia is #1 or somehow, or Equatorial Guinea is #1.
And if you're wondering what website you used to make this, it's Get Paint on it. And you need to load a picture in. It's because if you don't load it, it's just completely blank.
So yeah, if you guys want a video on how to learn to set this up to make your own YouTube channel, then just ask me in the comments and I will make a video about it. So this will be at the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.